Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Now today I'm doing something a little bit different because today I have one of my friends with me, Daniel. Now, what we're going to be doing is he's going to be going through a political compass test, as you can see on your screen, and he's going to be answering some of the questions, and I'll be here. So, do you want to say hi to everyone?
Hi, so don't expect too much from me. I am quite new with political philosophy, but I will try my best.
Alright, so, as you can see on your screen, Daniel, you have a few questions to answer. Now, you can go ahead and get started if you'd like, and we'll be watching, and I'll be watching to make sure none of your answers, are wrong. But anyways.
I mean, does it work to be right and wrong here?
Yes, it does.
My social teacher would beg to differ. If economic globalization is inevitable, it should primarily serve humanity rather than the interests of transnational corporations. And I would disagree with this, not strongly disagree, just disagree. My reason for that is that corporations, in a sense, run the economy. They give people jobs. We can't rely on just an equal citizen of the world basis to support economic prosperity. That can't happen without large corporations that lead the economic world.
Good so far.
All right. If I say anything you disagree with, then maybe we'll have to have a bit of a rebuttal.
Oh, but... of course.
All right. I'd always support my country, whether it was right or wrong. I would agree with this. Obviously, for me, I'm Canadian. So my country generally is quite decent on where it stands on most topics. Obviously, we are slowly becoming more communist, and we are quite socialist, although there is still freedom in comparison and economic prosperity in comparison to other countries. So therefore, I would support them. However, I might raise opposition against certain things.
Interesting. Very
would
interesting.
You...
Now, I have a question there for you. So let's say they decided to genocide another race or a specific race.
Then I would then oppose them doing that. However, I would still, at the basis, support my country, just not in every single aspect. I would support them.
Interesting. Okay.
No one chooses their country of birth, so it's foolish to be proud of it. I would say disagree. This is because although you can't choose where you were born, you can choose which country you are a citizen of. Although you might not be accepted as a citizen, however, immigration is obviously possible, and you should still be proud of your country of birth, depending on your country, obviously, or at least Westerners should, because we do live in very good countries with a little bit of exception with Mexico. But no, you should be proud of it because once you are born, they automatically just give you all of the rights that come with the country. So therefore, they are already granting you privileges as soon as you're born. So it makes sense to be proud of the country.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Now the next question, it's going to be pretty important. So.
All right, thanks for the heads up.
Yes. I don't want to be canceled. I do not want to be canceled.
All right. Our race has more superior qualities compared with other races. Depends which race you're talking about.
See, this is the part where we're not supposed to be canceled.
In that case, strongly disagree.
Perfect. Moving on.
Can I actually elaborate on this question? Or
Yes. No, you can elaborate on it. I'm joking.
Awesome. All right. So, I think the only kind of races that would have superiority are biological races or biological differences within races. I don't mean that in an offensive way. However, if you are like people's bodies adapt to the kind of work that their races have been doing for centuries, and certain aspects of a biological body are more dominant in modern day society than others. For example, there's a general height that is preferred and is the best ability for bone structure and just for day-to-day life. Give you slight advantage. Obviously, I'm not saying there's major superior qualities, just very minor ones. It's not like we're biologically equal. We are very close to biologically equal, but not perfectly biologically equal. So in that case, it says our race has many superior qualities. So in that case, I will strongly disagree. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. In a sense, this makes sense because if you generally defeat your opponent, you have like a monopoly in an economic standpoint. However, the enemy of an enemy can also be an enemy if they are a competition to you. So if an enemy is an enemy in an economic standpoint, then therefore they are also a competition with you. However, with a physical or like a war standpoint, then it still depends on what your enemy of your enemy what the motive behind the original enemy was. I think I'm going to get tongue-tied here with saying enemy so much. I will disagree.
Okay. Next question, or these aren't really questions, but next statement.
Yeah. All right, military action that defies international law is sometimes justified. Agree. We see this when America bombs citizens within Japan to force their economy to crumble and force a surrender from Japan, saving millions upon millions of lives of troops. So I think that was justified. Even if it is immoral and is murder, it's still justified.
Interesting. Okay. Next one. There is now a worrying fusion of information and entertainment.
Strongly agree. Yeah, we see mass political polarization, and there has to be a reason for it. Obviously, we see extremely biased media on both sides. We love to say it's just left, but it's really not. It is both. We do create our own echo chambers within our media. So,
by the way, I am a right-wing media covering. But moving on, next page.
I know. I just had to come in honest, you know.
Well, thank you for that. I may or may not have to censor that back in the video, but
wow, that's just pure hypocrisy.
it isn't if people don't find out. Now,
all right, people are ultimately divided more by class than by nationality. I would strongly agree. We don't really see systematic racism anymore, or we don't see any systematic racism in the Western world. We might see effects of it on minor scales, not nearly as large as most would portray it to be. So yeah, in that case, I would strongly disagree.
Next one, controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment.
Oh boy, this is a tough one. I don't think the government should control inflation or unemployment. I think they should try to affect unemployment slightly, as well as inflation, just not very, very, very little. When we see government trying to control inflation, that's where we see stuff like Venezuela or Germany pre-World War II,
or
just
Canada.
Hyperinflation happening. Or Canada, we did, but America only America only artificially injected like $3 trillion into the market. Like, no big deal. I would say disagree.
Okay.
Because corporations cannot be trusted to voluntarily protect the environment, they require regulation. This I would agree with. I realize I'm taking quite the leftist stand here. However, I do believe that in a capitalist world, we should let governments, or we should let companies do whatever extent of labor or damage on the climate they wish within government standards. It is therefore the government's job to make sure the environment is protected, and we cannot blame corporations for going up to the measure that the government's put in place. I think you would disagree with my general stance there, right?
Next question. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, in general, I would say I disagree, mainly because I don't view corporations as willingly creating basically environmental problems or mini environmental problems. They also preserve the resources they need, but we can move on.
All right. We still have some questions to go through, so maybe we should.
Yes, we have a lot of questions. Yeah. We have 6 pages of questions.
From each according to his ability to each according to his need is a fundamentally good idea. So I will strongly disagree with this. I believe that we can rely on churches and charity to support those who cannot at all sustain themselves. However, those that have the ability to get rich should have no drawbacks with achieving extreme prosperity. To those that don't, there's factors for it. But yeah, there's not that many differences in our society that we should see like 50% of millionaires' money is going towards the lower class. There's not that large of differences in our society. That many factors. Yeah. All right. The freer the market, the freer the people. Strongly agree.
Interesting.
Agree.
Interesting. Now, I have a question on that one.
Yeah, for sure.
So, if the freer the market means the freer the people, right?
Yep.
Then should we have any government regulation?
Yes. A slight, but a little bit there for stuff like the environment and stuff.
Leftism. Moving on. It is a sad reflection on our society that something as basic as drinking water is now a bottled, branded consumer product.
I strongly disagree. All right, so we see companies making millions, billions of dollars off of putting water in a bottle, but the person creating this question is the one buying it. Basically, the only reason companies succeed is because the consumers choose to let certain companies succeed through what they buy and what they don't buy. So therefore, if companies are putting water in a bottle and selling it for more expensive than oil in a bottle, well, that's simply because we value the water more, or because we have chosen to make it valuable as consumers.
Very well said.
Thank you.
Oh, of course.
Land shouldn't be a commodity to be bought and sold. I would strongly disagree with that. Yeah, because when people think of libertarians such as us, they often think of anarchists, in which we are not anarchists. We still believe in a system. There is still
some of us do. Anyways.
Well, I'm not an anarchist. I'm just a libertarian. There's just so much. You can't just be born into a world. Or oftentimes, I've heard people say how sad it is that you're born into a world where you have to work your way up, and chances are you'll never even be able to own your own home or anything like that, because you'll never be able to pay it off because of the financial state of the world. I would strongly disagree. I think our quality of life has gone up so much that we cannot live with a slightly less consumptuous mindset, and therefore nobody knows how to spend finance, and therefore we aren't seeing people buying their own land, and that's why we see so many renters, and that's why we see so much elitists in the financial world, because they can just take control of the consumers. This is because the consumers spend too much and don't know how to lower their quality of life. Rather than it being unfair, it's just wrong decisions on the consumer's end.
Oh,
and that's from somebody that works. That's from somebody that works 13 an hour in a fast food place. All right. It is regrettable that many personal fortunes are made by people who simply manipulate money and contribute nothing to their society. This I strongly disagree with. Protectionism is sometimes necessary in trade. Strongly agree. That goes into international law quite a bit, which is a huge subject. But basically, I think if each and every country looks out for their own citizens and their own economic prosperity, then we will see beneficial alliances through that. All right. The only social responsibility of a company should be to deliver a profit to its shareholders. I disagree. Actually, I'm kind of stuck on agree and disagree. Definitely on the fence a little bit.
Interesting.
What would you say for this question?
So I would say the question, right? Because let's pull up social responsibility here, right? So social responsibility means that businesses, in addition to maximizing shareholder value, must act in a manner that benefits society. So the question would be, why must it do that? Why must it do that? If it's acting in a way that will benefit shareholders, right?
Yep.
It's going to be acting in a way that benefits society. That's just natural. Because to benefit shareholders, you have to benefit the people who are paying the shareholders, who are the consumers. So if you're trying to benefit society beyond that, it's just going to provide a net loss to the business, and the business isn't going to do that very well.
Okay, so you would agree with this statement?
Yes, I would say I agree with that statement.
Okay, that makes sense to me. All right, the rich are too highly taxed. I strongly agree. they're already doing enough for society. They're buying and moving so much money that they're creating so much more jobs with all their separate financial projects that are going on. Obviously, if they're storing hundreds of millions of dollars in savings, that is slightly problematic, but they're still way too highly taxed. Those with the ability to pay should have access to higher standards of medical care. I strongly agree. Governments should penalize businesses that mislead the public. I disagree with this one. If anything, we see governments promoting it right now. Is that a clap in the background?
Yes, that is my clap.
A genuine free market requires restrictions on the ability of predator multinationals to create monopolies. I'm kind of on the fence with this one too, because monopolies do make it, because of economies of scale, they do make it so that smaller businesses don't have as much opportunity to succeed. I would agree with this one. I think
you would agree with that one.
Interesting. As much government intervention as I despise, if we saw a world with just monopolies, then we'd see a world with just laborers.
Now I have a quick question, a quick little intervention on this one.
All right.
How do you think monopolies are created?
By one business succeeding originally and being better than all the rest, and therefore making more money, therefore putting out competition of all the other businesses.
Really?
How would you say they are created?
By government.
How so?
Well, so here's the deal. A monopoly in a traditional free market, it just never exists. Monopolies do not exist under the constraints of a free market. Now, certainly you can have an appearance of a monopoly, but you can't have I would say you can't have a controlling monopoly within a free market. Take services like AT&T. I don't know if you have AT&T in Canada. You might have Moose Internet. But so do you know what AT&T is?
I have no clue.
Oh, okay. So AT&T is an internet provider, very big internet provider. Kind of like,
okay.
I don't know what internet providers you have in Canada, but think the biggest one you can think of.
All right, let's go with TELUS.
Okay, so let's go with that word. Now, so when you have those, right?
All right.
What is to prevent me from starting an internet provider company?
Well, the fact that they can offer much better prices because of the amount of customers that they have. All right, so let's say you're selling bananas. You own a banana field, and I own a banana field.
Yes.
I happen to succeed through, let's say, strategic marketing, and I now own 5 banana fields, and you own 1 banana field.
Yes.
To make enough income to support myself, I can sell my bananas for much cheaper than you can, therefore giving me all the customers because I'm selling my bananas for cheaper. Therefore, I will get more customers, allowing me to make my bananas even cheaper, allowing even more customers to come. And that's how I believe monopolies are created. Okay,
so let's say a monopoly is created through that method, right? And let's say now I sell my banana field to you and you own 6, right? And I own 0.
Yep.
So now you're the sole provider of bananas.
That's right.
Now what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Are you going to raise your prices? Are you going to lower them? What are you doing here? Because as soon as you raise your prices, what that does is that creates an entry point for people to overthrow your monopoly, or your pseudo-monopoly, I'll call it.
Well, it depends. If I own every single banana field in the country, then there is no opportunity for other banana farmers to succeed.
I mean... random question, but do you think someone could potentially buy a lot of land and plant bananas on it? So here's I'll just, because we probably do need to move on to the next question, but I'll just lay down my point real quick. So essentially, what happens when you have a pseudo monopoly, and that's just what I'm calling it for lack of a better terminology here, but it's a fake monopoly that appears to be a monopoly under the free market, because there's pretty much no possible way to restrict a market when it's a free market. For example, we take companies had a monopoly on steamboats, I believe. Well, what a guy did is he built a steamboat, and then he undercut them. And that was the end of their monopoly. So the only way a monopoly actually continues to exist under under a free market is by providing a service better and cheaper than it is possible for any competitor to do that. And because businesses never do that, because they get greedy, then monopolies don't exist under free market. So it's only a monopoly as long as the business actually provides the best service. What happens under a government-controlled market, though, is something called lobbying. So these businesses will essentially pay millions and millions of dollars, hire these people to go run around and chase their representatives down and force them to vote for policies that actually restrict the market so you cannot enter the market. For example, let's take a look at the United States medicine market. No one can sell pills or medicines when the US is quite frankly just restricting the flow and choking people to make them unable to actually provide these services without immense regulations.
Okay, no, I think I see what you're saying, actually. That does actually make very much sense to me. And I think that, because I was on the fence with this one to begin with. So kind of what you're saying is if a monopoly actually does any harm to society by having complete power over the consumer and then raising their prices like astronomically, then that creates opportunity for a smaller business to take over with lower prices and the opportunity for better products as well. Abortion, when the woman's life is not threatened, should always be illegal. Strongly agree. Abortion is murder. All authority should be questioned. I would strongly agree. The reason for me going strongly agree instead of agreeing is I think you should always support your authority. You should, or the majority of the time you should support your authority. However, you should always be questioning whether they are right or not. But you are still subject under them.
Very well said.
All right, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. I strongly agree. What if every single time you stole something, like if you stole $100 million, you were like $100 million in debt to the government as well?
Yeah, that would be...
Or actually, no. That might not work out too well, because then what if every single time you stole $100 million, you would, once the $100 million was returned, then you'd have to pay for all the lawyer fees and all the judge fees and all of that. Mm-hmm. And that'd be pretty cool.
Oh, exactly. That would be very nice.
All right. Taxpayers should not be expected to prop up any theaters or museums that cannot survive on a commercial basis. I strongly agree with this. Why spend all our tax money? Why not just at least have it so that it'll support itself? Schools should not make classroom attendance compulsory. I think I'm saying that right.
It's fine. I get a lot of words wrong in my videos.
All right. I would disagree with this. Not strongly, just disagree. If you're under grade 12, where society shouldn't fully expect you to make proper decisions, so therefore it should be mandatory. However, you should still have the right as to go to school or not, no, even if you will regret it in the future. Good parents sometimes have to spank their children. Spanking is not always the option to discipline, although I would strongly agree, because it does say sometimes. So in that case, I will strongly agree. The prime function of schooling should be to equip the future generation to find jobs. I would disagree. We should rather make schools the potential to build jobs or to exceed in jobs, but we should stop raising everybody to be a 9-to-5 through our schooling system.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a very good take.
There are no savage and civilized peoples. There are only different cultures. I would slightly disagree with this, as racist as that sounds. And I have a bit of an odd approach to this. As we know, modern day Westerners back in Europe called natives that were living in modern day America, North America, savages. That's why they said that it was the white man's burden to tame the West, kind of. And I don't agree with that approach. However, if a group of peoples are not exceeding or are not fulfilling the responsibilities a nation or a country should uphold, it should make sense for other countries to intervene and put it back to the normal regulations of a normal country.
Interesting.
As racist as that sounds.
No, I don't think that sounds racist. I mean, I think I put strongly disagree on that one, so...
okay, so we're pretty close.
Yeah, mainly because I don't like cannibalism, so...
Wouldn't you strongly agree then? There are no savage and civilized
No,
people.
I'm saying I don't like cannibalism. I think that's basically... So I strongly disagree. Yeah.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, you're right.
Either you strongly disagree or you support cannibalism. There's pretty much no other choice on that question.
All right. When you're in trouble, it's better not to think about it, but to keep busy with cheerful things. I disagree. Obviously, don't mope in your own despair for too long. However, if you just solve your problems and know how to deal with them, it's better to assess them, than it is to run away from them. First-generation immigrants can never be fully integrated within their new country. I strongly disagree. I think that one's kind of straightforward.
Yep.
What's good for the most successful corporations is always ultimately good for all of us. I would agree. All right, page 4. Our civil liberties are being excessively curbed in the name of counterterrorism. I don't know. I haven't thought about this question a whole lot. What are you thinking?
Nothing. I'm just waiting to hear what you say.
No, I want to hear what you're going to say. Because
yes, 100%. Strongly agree. Yeah. Because it's the whole... So... We have this weird thing where we take events and we apply more, I would say, more sway to them than they actually have, and then we run around like chickens with our heads cut off, and then we beg the government for intervention because apparently we're not doing good enough, and then the government accepts, and then we're like, oh no, now we have too much government intervention. It's like, well, yes, you just asked them to intervene. We saw this happen with, I would say, I should probably bleep that out, but we saw this happen then when people essentially started begging the government for more security because there was one slip-up that happened, and since then we've lost more and more, I would say, liberties, more and more things like that have happened. So essentially, yeah, I would say basically the government tends to try and basically restrict our freedoms because, you know, terrorists, and it's just not a very intuitive structure to operate under.
All right, so I won't strongly agree with that one. I will, however, agree because that does make sense. Although the electronic age makes official surveillance easier, only wrongdoers need to be worried. I disagree. The death penalty should be an option for the most serious crimes. Strongly agree. In criminal justice, punishment should be more important than rehabilitation. I would agree with this if we see visible punishment before, or if they can clearly see that they're going to receive punishment. It just makes more sense. The business person and the manufacturer are more important than the writer and the artist. I agree because the majority of writers and artists are not very beneficial to society as it's progressing. However, when we see like the Renaissance and stuff, it was the writers that did put a lot of enlightenment forward.
Interesting. And I think I would say the question here arises, what indicates a benefit to society, right? Through a business. And traditionally it's how successful that business or manufacturer or artist or writer is. So if they're successful, they indicate that they benefit society, right?
Yes. Multinational companies are unethically exploiting the plant genetic resources of developing countries. I'd agree slightly. You cannot be moral without being religious. I strongly disagree.
Yay! I was gonna say that one was gonna hurt if you put agree.
Charity is better than Social Security as a means of helping the genuinely disadvantaged. I strongly agree. As it is borderline murder to force somebody to help the disadvantaged. Pornography depicting consenting adults should be legal for the adult population. I strongly agree. No one can feel naturally homosexual. Depends how you define naturally. If you mean from birth, that's one thing. If you define because of biological reasons, such as like chemical distortion in the brain, or like high levels of estrogen, which come from certain activities, and wrong diets. In that case, I would agree. So I'll go with disagree. Because I'm assuming they mean from birth. All right.
Final question.
Better make a count.
I know.
These days, it's about sex has gone too far. I would agree.
Agree.
I think it is meant to be kept within the household. I feel like it's going to be authoritarian, right? Although I'm libertarian.
Oh no.
Let's see where you stand.
And you got to scroll down on that page a bit till it says your political compass.
Okay, all right. Oh boy.
Oh no.
I'm actually quite authoritarian.
Oh no.
No.
Oh, that's not too authoritarian.
It was more than I was expecting, to be honest.
Well, sure, but I mean, that's decently libertarian, to be honest. I mean, here's the deal. As long as it's under the line, it's okay.
I still feel like the questions were slightly misworded.
Oh yeah, they were.
Pushed me up a little bit. I feel like I should be maybe 1 or 2 squares down.
Exactly. I think this test wants to either put you in the blue square or the green square.
All right, I'm satisfied with my results. Don't believe it's 100% accurate, but
okay. Well, that's been the political compass test. Thank you so much for coming on my channel, Dan.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, it was. It was very fun. Thank you for watching. Let me know if you want to see more content like this in the description or more content with our local authoritarian libertarian Dan. And I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.